There's a good clump.
Well, y'all remember Darrell Merril from earlier this summer. Hi, Darrell. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine,
Well,
Sue.
great.
How are you?
Just great. Looks like you're up for processing the seed, sort of the fruits of your labor now.
Yes, it's the time of the year that we need to start processing our seeds for next year.
Okay. What variety of tomato do you have here?
This is the 1884 tomato. It was a tomato that was found on the banks of the Ohio River near Friendly, West Virginia in 1884. This is about a medium size because it's late in the year.
Okay.
Earlier tomatoes are about twice that size, but it's a very tasty tomato, and I've just cut this open to save the seed.
All right.
It's found by a fellow by the name of Williamson, and nobody knew the name of the tomato or couldn't identify it, so they just called it the 1884 tomato.
Right.
It is no longer available commercially.
So it's up to you home gardeners to be saving this and keeping the line alive.
That's true.
Right.
So we're going to show the process of how, I've been asked many times how I save my seeds. And normally, if I'm just the average home gardener, which I used to be, and not saving a lot of seeds through seed saver, I just put them on a piece of wax paper, squeeze it out.
Squeeze it out and just
let it dry on a
spread it
piece
out.
of wax paper.
Okay.
And let it dry for about 3 weeks. Out of sunlight. Don't try to dry them in the oven. 2 rows of thumbs. Keep all seeds out of direct sunlight and don't put them in the oven.
Okay.
But now I use what is called the fermentation process, and this is the process I'm going through here now. First of all, I put the tomato underneath the water so that you don't get squirted.
Yeah, you don't get squirted in the eye.
I don't get squirted. Everything doesn't get squirted.
Right,
As you can see, a lot of the seeds will come out along with pulp. And once you get the majority of the seeds, I just take and run my fingers around like that to get the majority of the seeds out along with the pulp, because you need the pulp in the fermentation process. This is Charlie Shaver's, my good friend over in Tulsa's, favorite tomato. Everybody's taste in tomatoes are subjective. This is his answer for every tomato used. This is his favorite tomato. So well, Charlie, I'm sorry, but this one's been sacrificed to a greater cause today.
Charlie's out of luck today if he's going to get your last tomato that
I've got a nice amount of pulp and all the seeds out of that quarter, and we'll let you and John test that for lunch.
We can sample this one later.
And the next process, after the seeds have pretty well settled out, since we're outside, I'm just going to pour this out on the ground to get the majority of the liquid off.
Okay, and those ones that were floating on top are probably not real good seeds anyway, right?
Normally the hollow seeds will fall at the top. I want to leave about a half a pint. I want to be sure to have the jar label, which I put it in, and the date, and then I just pour the liquid and the seeds in the jar.
Okay.
And I'm a maniac about getting all the seeds, so if there's a few seeds left, I just put a little more water in, and there's the seeds.
All right.
That takes care of that. I want to add a little bit more water because, no, thank you, Sue.
Normally he does this at a kitchen sink, and you probably would too, and that'd be handier.
So it's about half full.
Yeah.
And we set that in, I just set it on my kitchen sink.
Okay. Without a lid on, right?
Without a lid on it, just like that.
Okay.
Out of sunlight for about 5 to 6 days.
Okay.
And this one was processed about 5 days ago, just like that. This is the Aunt Jenny's purple, which you cut open on the air a few weeks ago.
Okay. And what's the purpose of this scum on top?
Okay, this is the fermentation process does at least 3 things. One is it removes the gel from the seed.
All right.
And 2, the acids created by the fermentation process will kill the pathogens that causes viruses.
Okay.
And number 3, the fungus will kill the virus pathogens.
So it makes very clean seed then.
Yeah, very clean and relatively disease-free seeds. Once you have this process done after 5 days, and it'll normally form a white mold, and this will be clear. These jars have been jostled around a little, and the seed, you can see, has settled to the bottom if we can see that. Probably not because it's not very clear. Take the label off, put it on another plate, and you want to use a surface to drop them in that you can take the tomato off easily. So you don't want to use paper plates. I use picnic plates or plasticized, or you can use ceramic. And we'll set this to the side to start fermenting.
Okay. And so this gets run through the...
This just gets poured. I just pour this just like this directly into this little tub. Rinse out any seed that are in it.
It's going to have a little odor to it, but that's okay, right?
Well, I believe you were at my place the other day, and there were about 15 to 20 at peak fermentation process, and there wasn't a whole lot of smell. And after that sets for just, I normally let it set for about 15 seconds, and all the good seed will fall to the bottom.
Okay.
And the bad seed will rise to the top with the pulp. And I just pour that out. And the first go around, the first pour out, you will get nearly all the pulp, and you'll have a considerable amount of good seed left. Normally I rinse this about 3 times with water, so that I can pour off all the pulp, and I normally let it settle a little bit longer to let the seeds drop, and then I pour it right through myself. It's normally a little cleaner than that. Then I just pop it right on the plate to dry.
Okay.
Now, if I'd rinsed it a couple more times, you would see no fibers in there at all. It'd just be pure, clean seeds.
All right.
But you want to spread that out a little bit so it'll dry. And after about a 2-day period of time, you'll have some of them will stay clumped together, and you want to take your hands be dry and clean, and you want to separate those seeds. That will allow them to dry more thoroughly. And it's preferable to have them in an air-conditioned room in the house, out of the way. And again, don't put them in sunlight.
Okay.
And after you go through that process, after about 3 weeks, I leave them in the plate about 3 weeks. And then I just pour them in a little baggie, and be sure the baggie is labeled. This happens to be a hillbilly variety, which I got the seeds from a lady in Collinsville. This is a mule team variety that's just been processed, that is not commercially available. It's a large red tomato that very thin skin, and it's become one of my favorites this year. Okay. And this one is exceptionally tasty. So those are both new to me this year.
And how long will those seed keep for you, Darrell?
Well, I've been using these baggies now for this is the 4th season, and I've planted seeds from my originals 4 years ago that still come up. They're not airtight, and most authorities would say that you need to store your seeds in an airtight container, and there are vials available that are airtight. But if you want to keep them for longer periods, that you probably should store them in an airtight vial. And you can freeze them. If you freeze them, they'll last up to 10 years.
Great.
Be viable.
Okay, well, this is a pretty detailed process. I want to remind you all that we always send to each county agent in Oklahoma detailed notes of processes that we show on Oklahoma Gardening. And Darrell will write this up as real detailed notes for folks, and you can contact your county extension office and have details on how to do the fermentation process. But this looks like really the best way to save tomato seed. And we want to mention that over here we have a display of different heirloom varieties of seed that Darrell has brought today. And this all came about through the efforts of the Seed Savers Exchange, which is a group of people who voluntarily began saving some of these regionally adapted, unusual seed varieties about 21 years ago. Now it's an organization with over 1,000 members. And if you'd like to learn more about the Seed Savers Exchange and the work that they do, you can write to them. We'll give you that address in a moment. If you become a member, you get what Darrell calls the world's greatest seed catalog. And this has in it over 10,000 varieties of all kinds of vegetable seed. You can write to individuals like Darrell and other gardeners all throughout the U.S. and Canada and other foreign countries and order small samples of seed for them, and then begin saving that seed in your own backyard. Through the Seed Savers, you can even order books that tell you exactly how to save seed from all kinds of vegetables. It tells you the whole process. They have calendars, and they even have a book that we use in the Extension office called the Garden Seed Inventory. And this gives us a listing of the heirloom varieties that all the commercial seed companies are carrying. The alarming thing is many of them are being bought up by large conglomerates and dropping these regionally adapted varieties. So it's up to home gardeners like yourselves to save seed and keep the lines going. If you want to write to the Seed Savers Exchange, send them a $1 bill or a check for $1 in the mail to Seed Savers Exchange, 3076 North Wynn Road, Decorah, Iowa 52101, and they'll send you a nice color brochure that tells all about the work of the Seed Savers Exchange and some of these books that you can order and how to become a member. Darrell, I'd like to thank you for joining us again today, and hopefully you all have gotten a greater appreciation of the value of maintaining heirloom varieties in your own backyard.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.